Okay. Hi, this is Lisa Anderson, and I am the Commodore of the Northern Light Sailing Club. And this is our January 2021 monthly meeting, our monthly Zoom meeting. And as I stated before, we are recording this meeting. So if anyone objects to being recorded and having this meeting published, you need to disconnect from this meeting now. Thank you. So we've been doing these Zoom meetings for a couple months now, and we're finally kind of getting the hang of it. And it's been kind of fun. And this month, I am happy to welcome some extra members that we have joining us from the Midwest Sailing Alliance. Correct me if I didn't say that right, but I think it was Midwest Sailing Alliance, which I actually am a member of that myself, but I've never gone on any trips with them or anything. But it's another group that gets together and goes sailing every once in a while. Although I don't think many of us have been sailing this year, sadly, because of the pandemic. So hopefully, with the vaccine coming along and hopefully the things toning down this year, we'll all get some sailing in this summer because that's what we all hope for. And um, a lot of times at the beginning of the meetings, I like to ask if anybody's had any adventures or any sailing. So if there's anyone that wants to share any kind of an adventure or any sailing, please go ahead and unmute yourself and tell us about an adventure that you've had lately. Anyone? I would not be surprised if we haven't had any adventures, but okay, I was hoping that we might have somebody that was brave, but I'm not surprised. Also, I'd like to ask if there's any new members that heard about the club and found their way to our Zoom meetings. So if there's anybody out there that's a new member that would like to introduce themselves to us, please feel free to unmute. If you're not comfortable doing that, that's fine. But if you'd like to, please unmute and introduce yourselves. Anyone out there that would like to? Okay. But if there are any new members, welcome aboard. Oh, I guess it's Minnesota Sailing Alliance. I said Midwest, but Marilyn corrected me. It's Minnesota Sailing Alliance. Close enough. We are in the Midwest. So, okay. Well, I see it looks like Jerry might have unmuted himself, which is normal because I always say that Jerry always has something to say. So what would you like to say, Jerry?
Well, I am going to be running a trip night in March, and this is where we introduce our trips for the upcoming year or two or three as conditions are now dictating. So I'm asking if anybody is thinking about a trip or planning a trip and they would like to have it included in the March trip night, to please contact me and we'll get you going. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Yes, and the board has been talking about that, and we are thinking that we are going to have a fairly robust schedule of things happening because, you know, it looks like it will be able to happen. Dorothy, did you want to mention the Windjammers? Or do you just want me to go ahead? Well, I'll just go ahead and you can jump in if you unmute yourself and find your way to the microphone. But as a lot of you know, we've had a relationship with the Maine Windjammers, and we've had a group go on the Maine Windjammer trip out of Maine, out of Camden, Maine, and it's a beautiful old boat, and you get to, you know, run the ship as much as you want or not want, and you know, you kind of work the lines and the sails and eat like they did it back then. And I heard that the food is pretty darn good too. And we had a real good amount of people that signed up last year, but of course it all had to be canceled. And we are planning on putting that same trip together. It's the week before Labor Day, so that it runs into Labor Day weekend, which includes there's a big like tall ship festival in Camden when you come back to the docks there on the Friday of that week. Then there's a tall ships festival going on, so we can stay in town and participate in that festival. So that's the plan. There's not much more, set down in stone, other than we want to get it out there that the plan is to do it, and same week. And we'll start getting it more set in stone in the near future. And there, with the availability of the vaccine and everything, we don't think there should be any reason why it won't happen, because it's so late in the summer. Pardon me, I'm kind of losing my voice because I was singing karaoke with friends this last weekend. Got a little rowdy. But is there any other trip related things that we should bring up at this point? So, okay. One other reminder that I would like to make is about membership renewals, that it is time to sign up for membership, and a reminder for everyone that we did reduce the membership fee this year to a mere $15 per person. And you can sign up online with a credit card. I've heard some people say they're having troubles with that. Who knows why, but it's always good to clear your cookies and your cache before you try to do it. That's just my tip. And if all else fails, send the check, which it's all in the newsletter, how to do that.
Lisa, this
yeah.
is Joan. Hi. I just wanted to announce my trips are canceled. The Florida trips that were replacing the BVI trips, they're canceled.
Yeah.
But well, I'll have some in the fall. So.
Yeah. Do you think you might do the catamaran certification?
No, I had to cancel just because of the
Yeah.
vaccine schedule and everything.
Yeah. Okay. Sadly, I really want to do that. Oh well. Okay. And then the other announcement that a lot of people have been hearing quite a bit is we are still looking for a bearings editor. And we have somewhat of a plan for a February and a March newsletter, but after that, there is no plan for a newsletter. So at that point, we're not really sure what there will be. So if there's anybody out there that has any inclination in helping in any kind of a way at all, and helping us get some kind of a newsletter, we would really appreciate someone stepping up and helping us with a newsletter, so that we can have some kind of a communication going out to the members. And following that, I will also make that the annual comment that we will also be starting to recruit for board positions for the elections that are coming up in April. So if there's anybody interested in volunteering for a board position, although my experience tells me that nobody ever volunteers for a board position. It's kind of like you have to be pressed into service. So, but if there is somebody out there that might want to volunteer for a board position, we'd love to have you. So that's about all I had. Was there any other members that needed to make any kind of announcements or anything of that nature before we go to the regularly scheduled program? Sounds like no. So I wasn't sure because I missed the dry run
Yeah.
Was it Tom or Heidi? That was Tom?
It went well.
Okay. Okay, so I'm turning it over to Tom then.
Okay. Since I am the Tom Matheson, the Vice Commodore, and I actually am the person who has to do the arm twisting for the board. I have to put together a nominating committee. And I know there's a lot of you out there that really would love to get involved. We have a really good time at our meetings. Typically, we've met in person, but since last March, we've been meeting by Zoom. And, it's still a lot of fun. So it's good to get to know the inner workings of the club. Last year, we had 150 members, I believe. I know there's a lot of talent out there. And I know there's somebody out there who really wants to be the editor for the Barron's newsletter. And there's a lot of other help that people on the board can kick in also. Before we get to Scott, I will need to put a plug in for the March meeting. And you guys are really going to want to, oh, wait a minute, no, February meeting. Yeah, March is trip night. February, we have a guy named David Thorson. Go Google his name. It's Thoreson. He has sailed 60 some odd thousand miles all around, all over the world.
Hang on, it's
And he's
S-E-N.
just,
I think
oh,
it's
I'm sorry,
S-E-N.
Ian Thorson. Yeah. And he's the first American to go in both directions on the Northwest Passage on a sailing boat. Among other things, he's done TED Talks. He's a professional photographer. Yeah, he knows a lot of people, including Roger Swanson, who's many of you know who Roger Swanson is, otherwise known as the Pig Farmer, a great sailing guy who sailed around the world a couple of times. So tune in, there'll be more information coming out in the Bearings issue on that presentation. And let's see, with that, we're going to move right to Scott. And I need to thank Joan Gilmore. She's the one who came up with, contacted Scott initially to speak on GPS, global position satellites, to get him to speak tonight. And then Heidi Myers and I worked with him and did a drive around the other night, right, Scott?
We did, yes.
Yeah, Scott is the manager of the, I think it's what, the second largest West Marine store in the Western Great Lakes District.
That's correct,
I
yeah.
believe.
The Minnetonka store.
And he can't plug his store, but I can. If you know where West Marine is, it's a great, you can find anything and everything there. You can find it online. The store is located out on 394 on Wayzata Boulevard at 12350. Wayzata Boulevard is actually on the other side of 394 from Ridgedale. So that's my plug for Scott. He didn't even ask me to do that, but.
Thanks, Tom.
So Scott, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can share your screen. People who are viewing, if you want to go up into their upper right-hand corner where it says view, and you can click on speaker view, and that will switch it over to Scott so that when he's talking and he shares his PowerPoint, you won't see as many other little people scattered around on your screen. So, and then people, if you want to send in questions anytime during the presentation, I will be monitoring the chat. So you can send in questions via chat and I'll keep track of those so I have a Q&A at the end of the program. So, all right, Scott.
And one more tip, if people want to turn off their own video, it also helps with just the overall bandwidth.
Well, Tom, thanks a lot. And Joan, thanks for inviting me to come tonight. It's been kind of fun to put together what will hopefully be helpful anyway. I don't in any way, shape, or form claim to be a TED talker like your next month's guest. I'm basically a guy who sells stainless steel fasteners and bottom paint, but I know a few of you out there, so it's kind of nice to see some familiar faces too. I do have a long history with GPS. Not been selling it for only, I have been selling it for only 13 years, but I've been using it since 98. I was lucky enough to get one of the very first, or the very first product that Garmin came up with, a Garmin 45. That some of you probably remember, but basically it was a little handheld device that had this big antenna that flipped up, and after about 30 minutes, it would tell you where you were, if you gave it a good enough starting place to get going from. Things have come a long way since then. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I put this in a PowerPoint presentation just to keep myself on track, but hopefully also to give you a chance to see what we're trying to talk about. And there's a few pictures and videos as well. The goal is really to get those who are not as familiar with GPS to be more comfortable with it, and those who are familiar with GPS and may want to know what else is out there that they could use along with their multifunction display or chart plotter. We'll talk about that as well. So you should be seeing an introduction to GPS on board. Is that what everyone's got on their screen? Tom?
No,
No?
don't have it shared yet.
All right, let me try it a different way here. I thought it said share screen. Share screen. There we go. Okay. How's that?
That looks good.
All right, sounds good. The goal too is to keep the initial part of this relatively short. I think we had talked about 30 minutes. Lisa, I think had written in maybe even 40 minutes. Hopefully I won't be that long-winded, and then we can have time to run through a lot of questions as well, if people have them, and we'll go from there. So I'll address that. There we go. So in general, GPS is used for navigation on boats. That's what the main thing that we're going to think about as far as GPS goes. GPS is global positioning system rather. It does use satellites, but there's thousands of uses for it. You use it every day in your car, or you may use it every day in your car. You use it on your phone. It's how your pictures are stored. Actually, all the photos you take on your phone generally will have a location on them because of the GPS system that your phone has in it. iPads have GPS in them. They're really everywhere at this point. The receivers are. So let's talk. What we'll cover is what it is and how it started. What is GPS and how it started? Where it's used, specifically on board, and then a demonstration of a current multifunction display. We used to call them chart plotters, and that's still a function of a multifunction display. But really, for the most part now, when we're talking about a chart plotter, we're talking about a multifunction display. It's something that's going to do a lot more things than just a GPS plotting, which is a lot, but it's going to do certainly more. And then it's also good to remember, and we'll talk a little bit about this, what it isn't. It's not the do all end all when it comes to navigation. There are still smarts that you have to have and other tools that you need to be able to use. Again, the goal of this is to have you more familiar and comfortable with the use of this valuable tool. So we're not trying to make you experts, but we do want to make you at least comfortable with it. Let's see if I can get to the next page here. There we go. So we'll talk about what GPS is, what it is, where it started, how it works, its accuracy and its speed. When we went through the run through of this, I could speak for hours on this, so I'll do my best to not do that. But here we go. So GPS, or the Global Positioning System, It's a US owned utility developed and currently owned, still owned by the United States. It provides users, and that could be civilian or military or governmental or all sorts of different users, with positioning, navigation, and timing. And timing's a really important one. The reason we all knew that we were here at 7 o'clock was because of the GPS times being sent to all of our devices. And that keeps us all on time, I guess. A lot of yacht clubs will actually use GPS time because, again, we all have access to it as a way to start their races. You're going to start at X number GPS time, and it gets you at least to the starting zone. So the system consists of 3 segments. We generally only think about the user segment, the thing we see, the thing we've got in our hand, the thing that we bought and put on our boat. And that's really where a lot of the calculation is done to figure out where we are. But in order to make that happen, there's a space segment. We could have all guessed that, right? We got a satellite up there, generally a series of satellites. They keep adding more. So it was a 24 satellite system. I think we're up to 31 now. And with that, they keep adding more abilities or capabilities. And then there's another very important segment that none of us ever think about. I sure don't. It's called the control segment. And basically these are the stations on the ground that are telling the satellites where they are and what time it is. Making sure they've got all of that information so that when they transfer that out as a signal to your receiver, you've got good information. So it takes all 3 of those segments to make this work. And the space segment and control segment are managed and developed and operated by the US Air Force. Not the Space Force, as far as I know. It's just the Air Force that does that. And it might be too soon to make jokes about Space Force, but in any event, you've got 3 main parts to the GPS system: space segment, control segment, user segment, and it's run by the Air Force, United States Air Force. The way they came up with it and the driving need behind it was, as you could guess, the Department of Defense. They wanted to be able to know where to shoot the missiles that they were shooting. And they wanted to be able to know where all their submarines were. That was kind of the original intent of it. It is 3-dimensional, meaning you know elevation as well as latitude and longitude. So it's obviously very important for things that are flying as well. It's a relatively new system, although I guess I was kind of laughed at when I said that in the dry run. I might be getting older than I think I am, but it started with the with a Navstar satellite in '78, but the full system didn't really come into play until 1993. So really not that long ago. What is that? 27 years ago. So not all that long ago. For myself, I was introduced to it back in '88, I think it was. And I was reading Racing Through Paradise, a Pacific Passage by William F. Buckley. Politics aside, he has done a number of well-written sailing adventures. And this one happened to be 30 days through the Pacific, where he said he had this new amazing thing that would revolutionize sailing. I don't think he was wrong, but I think it's done a lot more than that. But he had a very early device. It was from Trimble, a name that in the civilian side of GPS we never really hear about. Trimble is responsible for a lot of the really high-end military and civilian construction and agricultural type GPSs that we'll talk about in a second here. That's how it started. There they are, the satellites. There's one of them. There's a group of them. So this is how it works. The satellites know exactly where they are, and they all have the same time. So they know where they are and they know what time it is. very good, important things to know. They take and they send that system or that signal out. They transmit it with their time signal. So your receiver down on the ground is going to get those various signals, and it takes a minimum of 3 to get even just the plain, just a real simple location. But a lot of fixes is a location. A lot of fixes will actually come from a dozen or more satellite readings. And what the receiver does is it figures out, hey, this satellite's over here and it's this time. This satellite or is this far away from me and it's this time. This other satellite is this far away from me and it's this. It thinks it's this time, and this one is this far away from me and it thinks it's this time. It uses that to get a distance from each satellite that it is, and then it can calculate its location based on those satellite locations. Whole bunch of words that don't mean much. Basically, there's the satellites giving us the position. The receiver, which is the thing that we're used to, it's our side of GPS, is really where the work gets done in terms of where it is, or where the boat is, or where the car is, or where your watch is telling you you've run to or bicycled to. So how it works. Accuracy can vary all over the place. There are 2 major divisions of accuracy. One is civilian versus military. Civilian is a separate channel actually on the GPS satellites, and then generally we're talking about within a few meters. So pretty amazing accuracy, even though it's kind of dumbed down for the civilian use. Military grade, it can be within a centimeter. So very ridiculously accurate, which I guess they have a need for. There's another type of use of GPS that I really wanted to mention because it's kind of fascinating, or I think it is anyway. It's called an augmented GPS. And basically what that does is it takes the GPS signal that we can all use, and by adding in a component based on a known position and another transmitter on the Earth. You see these at construction sites. They look like a tripod with kind of a little saucer shaped device over the top. Maybe looks like a TV antenna from a boat or something. What that's doing is they've set that up over a very specific point, and they're transmitting out that point. The receivers in their system are receiving that location as a known location, and they can combine that with the satellite location to get within a centimeter of where they're actually located. Well, you can imagine when you're doing things like building a road and you want to get the road paved to the right elevations with the right crown on the road and all the rest of it, that's a pretty important thing to be exact about, and they can be very exact. Same with professional land surveyors. It can actually get to their level of precision as well. And a favorite one of mine, I was able to ride along with a farmer on his, oh gosh, probably $500,000 combine out in southwestern Minnesota. And he had a GPS system. And he said, yeah, it cost about $150,000. And I thought, geez, how could that possibly be worth $150,000? Well, what they do is it actually is a full autopilot for this giant machine that they use both in harvest and planting. And when they're planting, they go down the field and back down make the next row and then back down the next row. And the way they used to do it is the guy in the cab would kind of look over and he would see where the end of one row stopped and the beginning of the other row stopped, and he would try to line this giant machine up so that he didn't have gaps in the field where there was nothing planted, and he didn't have parts of the field where there was a big overlap. So he was spending money on feed and chemicals and things like, or not feed, but seed and chemicals and things like that he didn't need to spend it on. Largely, I think they grew corn in this particular farm, but with that $150,000 GPS system, he could get his overlap within an inch. So there was very little waste, both in productive land and in chemicals and seed, that it would pay for itself within a couple of years. So amazing things that we can do with the accuracy there. In general, when we're on a boat, though, we're talking about a few meters. It's not going to be enough to get you into the dock at your slip, for example, but it should get you back to near the front of the, or near the entrance of the marina, or near the anchorage that you want to be at, that type of thing. All right. Speed's another one I mentioned already a little bit. My old GPS 45 would get a fix. It would get one beautifully, 15 to 30 minutes to get that first one. After that, it would get them pretty quickly, but it could take a very long time to fire up. Nowadays, when we turn on their GPS, they are up and rolling within a few seconds. It doesn't take very long at all. If you've not had it on in a while and you've changed locations, there's a possibility it could take a little bit longer. But that's gotten progressively better over the last 13 years that I've been involved in selling them anyway. They're very, very good. My current GPS handheld that I use as a backup wherever I go is just a little GPS Map 76SC. I really like that because it's got the chart built in it. And it's fast. It's just a matter. It's just a few seconds, and I'm up and running. It'll give me speed. It'll give me speed over ground. So it's you know, plenty fast for what I need it for. There are certainly better, higher quality GPS units, and it seems like they improve on a regular basis. And a lot of it is to do with processing power and new improvements that the whole system is being given. And I realize I've gone a little bit long in my first segment, but we'll keep pushing forward. So where's it used on a boat? Well, I just talked about a couple of things. The handhelds, of course, that's always fun to have. Your phone, you know, go to navionics.com and download their app. I think it's about $15, something like that. And you've got the entire United States charted out for marine use. You're using the GPS right on your phone, the chipset right on the phone. You're not using cellular data or the cell towers to do anything. You're just using the phone as a GPS at that point. Definitely do that. What a great thing to play around with and have as a backup. Oh, and any of those things that I talk about like that, where navionics.com, at the end of this, there'll be a resources page, and I'll just leave it on that when we're talking about questions. I just use some simple ones, but it's nice to have. Where else do we use it? Believe it or not, a lot of the speedometers now are just GPS based, especially in the racing world, where you want to know about all sorts of, you know, am I getting, what's my course? Am I getting headed? Is it a lift? You know, what decisions do I want to make regarding where the boat's going to go? Multifunction displays, the whole reason that we got together. It used to be called chart plotters, but that's really just one function of them now. VHF location and distress calls. Most of the GPSs we sell, or not GPSs, VHF radios that we sell now can be purchased with a built-in GPS. I strongly recommend that one, because if you ever send out a distress call, regardless of what else is going on the boat, when you send that distress call from a GPS equipped VHF, it's sending out your location as well as the information on what the boat is, where, or who you are, who they're supposed to call, that type of thing. Other things that we'll see on board that use GPS, we've got EPIRBs, which are emergency position indicating radio beacons. This is a government system, 406.1B or something like that. And then there's the civilian, or not the civilian, but the commercial version of those types of things too, the spot locators, and Garmin has one that they use as well. But these are basically location devices, things that send out your location. When we do the Trans-Superior, and I see a few Trans-Superior veterans on the call here, we actually mount a device on the boat that sends out periodically our location based on GPS. And then that gets sent to a chart that online that people can go and check and see where people are. And it's fun to watch the race unfold. And hopefully we'll be back to doing races soon. But you could certainly do that in any kind of situation where you're out cruising or whatnot. And then there's AIS, which is one I really like, and it's the, I had to look it up because, hang on now, it is AIS, Automatic Identification System. How'd I do, Tom? All right, so AIS is a feature of, see if I can get back to where I was. There we go. AIS is a, oh, hang on. Sorry about that, guys. I got off of the track there. There we go. All right. AIS is a new, or relatively new for marine use system where you'll be able to see a ship or boat on your chart, be able to see its direction, get some information about its speed, so that you can know who's around you. So very, very useful system. All commercial vessels are required to have it with few exceptions. Certainly offshore race boats use it, and there are a number of sailors and other cruisers that use it at a minimum on a receive basis, where they're receiving this signal from all the other boats that have it, that are sending it out, and they can plot it on their system so they can see the other boats, or in a transceive system where they're both receiving it and sending it out. Some of the devices you might see on a boat, obviously we've got a little handheld device, we've got the multifunction display, and the this little speed puck down in the corner. I don't know if you can see it or if the screen covers it up or what not, but it's GPS based, but you'll never see a chart. It'll never give you your location. All it's doing is it's calculating your course, it's calculating your speed, and it's telling you whether you're lifted or headed. That's it. So GPS gets used for things that are not immediately obvious, but are very helpful. All right, so let's take a look at the meat of this. We want to see the multifunction display, and bear with me on my filming abilities. We were thinking of doing this live when Joan and I talked about this at first. After a number of different attempts at the live version, I decided to go with video instead. I think that that proved to be a little bit easier to make work. So we'll go through a couple of real simple things. Again, we're not trying to make you experts, but we do want to expose you to some things. The first one is, hey, how do you turn it on? So once I get this up and rolling, you'll see down here at the bottom, there's a finger getting slid across that little on button, little 0 with a line in it, and it pops up. It's going to go through kind of a startup, much like a computer would go through. This particular system is an Axiom from Ray Marine. They use essentially an Android operating system. It's very, very similar to that. So you can tell that if you're familiar at all with the old devices that we used, 20, even 10 years ago, they were quite a bit different than this and really had very specific functions, and that's all they did. Now we've got, once we turn it on, of course, it's just going to a welcome, or not a welcome screen, but a menu screen. And you can see that we can do a lot of different functions right off of that. Each brand, each manufacturer, over time will have, each manufacturer has their own version of their operating system. Each manufacturer over time has different ways to control the system. In general, you'll have some kind of main menu like we have here. You'll have some sort of settings like we do down here at the bottom. And within each of those pages or applications or modes that we want to think about, there will be some specific settings there as well that we can use to make the information more what we want to see. All right, so that's turning it on. So Joan, what do you think? We got it turned on. We're good there. I guess you're muted. All right, we'll go to the next one. So here we're going to take a look at, we're on the menu right now, and we're going to have a man overboard drill. We're going to press that man overboard button and hold it long enough for the man overboard position. And that's the position when you push the button is going to go and be recorded on the screen. And then as you move, it's going to continue to give you a bearing and a range to that man overboard location. As Tom pointed out earlier when we got together before, he's actually got an app on his phone that does this, which I think is fabulous. So if you want to maybe ask him where he got that and download it on your phone, that's a good way to have it too. Part of what's useful, I think, part of what adds usability to these devices, these multifunction displays, is while Tom has the app in his pocket and is probably fast at pulling it out and opening it up and marking a man overboard location, the helmsperson's got this right in front of them. They reach up and they push the button. So this is an appliance. You know, I used to always say, think of it like a toaster. Obviously, it does a lot more than a toaster, but think of it that way. And then it's going to give you that functionality. So we'll let this play through a little bit more. You can see that it gives you our position up on top, the bearing and range to that man overboard. And then at some point we'll have picked that person up. We'll go ahead and acknowledge that location. And then you'll see where it said man overboard before, it now says cancel man overboard. So we can go ahead and do that. It'll also, I don't know if you can hear that or not, but it'll also beep as you've got the device in man overboard mode. So, and then you're going to be able to cancel that. And then once you get it canceled, you can go back into chart plotter mode, for example, bring up the chart, and then off you go. Now, one of the things I had mentioned earlier was AIS. This happens to be an AIS overlay that we're looking at right here. And you can see there's a lot of ships. This is, I think, down in Miami. One of the things I realized as I was putting this together is it would have been a lot easier, of course, to do this in the summer when I'm on a boat and moving around. But given that it's not summer and we haven't been on boats for a while, this is what we did. So you can tell we're getting a lot of different boats around us. The vector in front of them is showing where they're headed, and the length of the vector is relative to their speed. So the longer that blue line is, the faster they're going in that direction. Again, not trying to make experts out of us, just to let us know what's there and what we can see. All right, so then we'll let that play on a little bit further. You can set and save a waypoint. And of course, I pushed the wrong button here. Let's see if we can get back to where we were. I would say right in there. All right, well, I guess we're going to see radar. Basically, what I was talking about there is waypoints. This machine uses this little flag up here to be the way to set a waypoint. A waypoint is, hey, remember this place that I'm at right now. That's if you're setting it live like this. When you're planning a trip, you can set waypoints wherever you'd like to, or even as you're out on the water. And you want to, oh, you know what, let's divert and let's go over to this island and I'll put a waypoint over there and now navigate to that waypoint. All right, so we'll go a little bit further on that one. This is radar. Another thing that the multifunction display can do would be to show us radar. Obviously this, like a lot of the features for multifunction displays, require additional information from other units. In this case, it's coming in from a radome. just a little thing that you'll often see on sailboats that are offshore boats. All right. Oh, I think I went. There we go. Sorry about that. So we got some radar. You can kind of see there what it's doing for us. And then you'll notice, sorry about that. I keep doing that. There we go. Okay. Bear with me. All right, there we are. So what I wanted to show you here is we were just looking at this one here, this radar screen. All these other applications or modes or whatever we may want to call them are just split screens. So here's a dual split screen with chart on one side, chart on the other side. Maybe I want one showing right exactly where I am, but I want another one with a much larger view, and I could certainly do that. You could even do 3 screens at the same time if you want to. So when I select the item, it takes me to that mode. Here, I'm going to select dashboard. This is kind of a fun one. And this is going back to that idea of a lot of information, but not necessarily a position. All right, so it's giving us a lot of information that we may want to know. And depending on what other instruments we have networked into this instrument, we could be getting even more. So let's say we had our wind instrument in there. Now we're going to be getting well, I guess they didn't put any on this one, but maybe on the next screen it'll have wind instruments. But we can, oh no, the whole middle part is the wind, obviously. So we're seeing the wind displayed in the middle. Here's where the apparent wind is. And this is a full 360-degree rose there. So like a good cruising style rose. And then if you look down on the bottom, since we're on a dashboard, and this is true in a lot of things, how do we move around? Well, there's an arrow on the lower right pointing to the right. There's an arrow on the lower left pointing left, and those will take us to the next type of dashboard that we have available to us. So here we'll push it, and now we've gone into more of like a race style dashboard. All right, more of like a race style dashboard, where you'll notice that the information that's shown is going to be focused more on those specific things. And I'm sorry, every time I'm trying to pause the video, it's taking me back to a different thing. So we'll just let that play out. But you can see there's a number of different options within each mode even. So once we do go into the dashboard, we have the standard sailing mode, and then we'll have a race feature here coming up. And you may think you're never racing or you don't race. If there's 2 boats on the lake, there's a race, and we won't kid ourselves. So now you're looking at it here, and you've got the apparent wind, you've got the race timer, things that could be more important to some. It could be as simple as running engines. You could run engines on it. And it could be a navigation style. This is always a handy one here, the road navigation. Literally, it just tells you if you're off course, and you just drive the boat like you're driving a car on a road. Might be able to do it. Just show me a couple of important pieces of information, or maybe just one piece of information. So a lot of different things are available, not just position, but they're all based on that time, navigation, and position information from the GPS. All right, I think, Tom, I'm doing okay on time. We'll keep rolling. I'm down to, we won't quite turn it off yet, but we're getting that way. I just wanted to show you this one to kind of give you an idea of how far things have come on the sonar world. Generally, sonar wise, we're not all that particular in sailboats. Show me how deep it is and make sure I'm not going to hit the bottom. This is actually this unit with a specific type of transducer, and it's creating this chart as the boat goes along the bottom or goes along the water. So lots of different sonar possibilities. Here, what we're going to do is we'll actually create one of these applications that we've been selecting from on the menu. Let's do I think we're going to do a fish finder here. So I'm just going to pick a fish finder. Yep, that's what it is. We'll give it a name. I'm sure it's not a terribly creative one based on how I normally operate. Oh, there we go. It's at least appropriate. All right. So we got NLSC on there. We've created an application for all the fishermen in the group. And within that fishing application, there are different things that we can do. We can choose to see real vision 3D. That's what we were just looking at. We can choose to see side vision. And this is transducers and relatively affordable transducers. It's going to look actually to the side of the boat as you're traveling. Down vision, it's going to look down below you and give you a real clear picture, and then traditional sonar down below that. So I'll pick, I forget which, I think I picked side vision here. Yep, side vision. And so the screen now is filled with the side port and starboard of the boat. The top of the screen is where the boat is, and as the screen goes down, that's the history of what was to the side of the boat. So pretty amazing stuff in terms of what also is available with multifunction displays, and you may not be used to. Now this is kind of an interesting one. Remember I said that this was largely just an Android operating system. Well, here's apps that you can use on this one as well. So now you could play your Netflix movie on here, or listen to Spotify. So they're starting to get where they're recognizing what we're all used to, what we're accustomed to, and putting it into these devices and making it a lot easier to use. So that's kind of a good direction I think the industry is going there. And again, just using the arrows to go around. One thing I should point out too, if you look at the top here, it says sailing. Well, this is a specific set of demo instruments or demo screens for sailing. There's other types of screens. And when it's not a demo, when it's actually my unit and I'm on there, I can set up a screen for my, or a home page like this with all the different applications on it for myself, set one up for a guest, set one up for somebody else, so that the person using the device has freedom to roam and change settings and do whatever they want to without messing yours up. So that's kind of a fun way to do it. And of course, you could have one set up for racing and one set up for something else. Tom, we still doing good on time? I think we're at 8 right now.
Yeah, we're good. You're good,
Okay,
Scott. You got,
sounds good.
what else have you got there?
All right, we'll keep her rolling then. So I missed that last little bit. There we go. So again, these are different modes that we can go to, different screens that we can go to, and then the last little bit I think I just get into turning it off. There we go. So turning it off is the same as turning it on, just backwards. So window away from the shared application. Not sure. There we are. Okay. So we'll go back in here. So what GPS isn't? Really important to remember, we're still expected as the operator of a boat to be responsible for its operation. We've got to be aware of what's going on around us. We've got to use all of the different things that we have available to us. Plotting locations on a chart still means something to a lot of us. Where, you know, if something goes down, say the ship's power goes down, well, I have a handheld backup. All right, so now I got one level of security there. But if I've been plotting my location along the way, I know where I am, at least as of a little while ago, so I can use that. Sonar is a good one too. How deep is it? You know, if I'm in 100+ feet of water, I know I'm not on the shoreline. Well, maybe on the North Shore somewhere, but generally I know I'm not on the shoreline. But if I'm hitting 30 feet and it's going shallower and shallower, you know, maybe that sand island light's getting a little closer than I want it to be. These are still things that we have to know and have to be comfortable with. But GPS is certainly a great tool that we can use for navigation. Lastly, I'll give you the primary navigation method depends on the situation. A compass could be fine for most of it. You could turn the chart plotter off and just use your compass and off you go. Turn the thing back on every once in a while so you know where you are. Open seas. Maybe I'll just do a couple of shots. I've got the binoculars with a compass in. I'll take a shot and take another shot at a tower, another shot at a water tower, figure out where those are on my chart. Hey, now I know where I am. So it's not the do all end all, but it is pretty gosh darn amazing. Radar obviously is going to be able to cut through the fog a lot better than GPS would. So keep that in mind. Conditions matter. Other things you might have, you know, I guarantee you there's at least 4 guys based on the screen that I saw earlier that know how to use one of these guys and do a dip like this to get their location at the noon site. They're using a reduction table and a chronograph and other things to get that position. That used to be the only way to do it. Now we have the GPS, which is pretty amazing. All right, so what do we talk about? GPS on boats, it's used for navigation, but it's used for a lot of other things as well. We talked a little bit about what GPS is. It's a system. It's run by the U.S. Air Force. It's owned by the U.S. government. And it consists of 3 main parts: a Earth-based, a satellite-based, and a receiver-based part. It's used in just about every part of our life at this point. We looked a little bit at an MFD. I welcome you to come into the store if you want to. If you want to have some time alone with it, just let me know and we can set something up and you can certainly play around with it. Really what I want you to be is comfortable to go ahead and turn it on and use it. So when you get on a boat, you're not you know, saying that's too complicated, I don't want to be a part of it. We learned that it's not the do all end all. There's still other things that we need to know about sailing to sail and navigate responsibly. So hopefully at this point you're more familiar with it. I think I stayed more or less within my time frame, and I should have left a fair amount of time for questions on this valuable tool. And I will just skip this page and go right to references while we're talking about questions. So Tom, what have you got?
People, if you want, I suggest you take a picture with your smartphone of this page for references. Then you can go look at it on your own. First of all, Scott, I was really happy to see that you're able to watch Netflix movies now while you're moving this $150,000 boat through traffic. Much like now we can watch movies while we're driving a car.
If you're gonna get the 24-inch screen that cost $11,000, you better be able to watch a movie on it, right? So I mean,
yeah. So before I forget, we talked a little bit about handhelds. Can you just say something about what's the typical cost for a decent handheld these days?
You're looking right around $200, $300, I think, if you get the ones with the barometer and compass built in. That's the one I like, and you can usually get them on a sale. So I think $250 is a pretty decent amount. There's a few larger format ones now that are pretty nice. Those might run closer to $500. But the screen's bigger, so I certainly, as my eyes get worse and worse, I'd consider something like that. Garmin's kind of my go-to there, but there's other brands as well.
I'm kind of curious,
Yep.
what's the look and feel of those now? Are they like,
Yeah,
you know,
similar to what we just looked at there. Some of
they
them
are?
are a little more app based, I would call, like what we looked at just now. Some of them still do a little bit older system, what I would call pages. So you sort of scroll through the different modes by looking at different pages. But yeah, they've come a long way. I mean, in some respects, they've driven the operation on the larger ones. The
Yeah,
smaller ones have sort of mirrored phone development a little bit more closely. So,
well, when we went on our Greece trip, I was going to be skippering one of the boats,
oh, cool.
and I didn't have anything. And, I really struggled with what to buy. And
Mm,
I actually went with Navionics,
yeah,
and I got myself a tablet so I could have a little bit bigger screen.
right.
And frankly, it's great. It's
Yeah, yeah,
fabulous.
yeah.
I mean, they were really up. It was really, the charts were really up to date.
Mhm.
And, we had a chart briefing, and over there in Greece, we had that water pilot, and we've got the book out there. And I would just bring my phone. I didn't even bring my tablet. And after a couple days, I'm sitting there zooming in on the next marina, or whatever on my phone. And the flotilla leader's like, put that phone down here. Let's look at that.
Well,
Yeah, that's right. Look at that.
yeah, I kind of get what they're doing, but the reality is, if you've got something that works, use it. I mean, that makes sense to me. I really think that Navionics app is great. As I mentioned, Tom has a nice man overboard app that he's used on trips before, and uh, you know, get comfortable with what you've got and use it. That's going to be the most beneficial of all.
So, Scott, I've got one question here. This person says he's heard about some plotters changing the position dramatically when they get near a known point, such as a marina or a bridge, and the GPS shifts your position. Have you experienced that?
I
Or
haven't
why that might
experienced
happen?
it. I have heard of people having that. I've not experienced it. And it could be just a matter of interference. Bridges are certainly generally going to be a thing that's very tough for the relatively faint signal of a GPS to cut through. But no, I haven't experienced it. I haven't seen that one in action. But again, that's why we don't use it for absolutely everything. You're using your eyes, you're using other devices. I will say, ironically, in our store, we have a metal roof and I don't get any signal. So there are certainly situations where the signal gets played with by, in particular, metal.
So what's the difference? Do you know what GPS-A is?
There's different grades of GPS, and I didn't review those before we got on, so no,
Okay.
I don't remember it.
I just wonder if there's things that you can turn off that might, eliminate that chance of gets shifting your position. When
Excuse me, Tom, and I sent the question in. So when with the GPS-A, which I've heard people refer to it as GPS assisted, and if you look on I've got a B&G, and if you look on there, it'll tell you that it's collecting data from GPS and GPS assisted, and the Chinese version, I don't know, GLONASS or whatever it's called, and the new European one that's just being activated. And so what I've heard is sometimes, like for example, with GPS-A, you talked about that known position. You get next to something where there's been a pre-registered known position, and all of a sudden you get shifted over 200 feet on your GPS. So I don't know if there's a ability to turn those GPS-A on or off in the software of our B&G systems?
Yeah, we could take a look at that for you. I'm almost positive there is a way to say what we want to look at as far as systems go. But yeah, we could certainly take
I'll
a
come
look
out
at
to the, I'll come out to the store, Scott. I'll call ahead of
This is-
time. I'll come out to the store and maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah, this is definitely the time to do it if you want to hang out, because we got time right now. So.
You know, I wonder if what that is, if your GPS unit is picking up the land signal that gives you the more, you know, like a surveyor, a land surveyor that gives you more definite. And if that signal gets blocked, which typically would be more likely to get blocked than a satellite signal, depending on what you're in, that could account for a dramatic shift.
Yeah, it does. That does kind of make sense. If there's some sort of augmentation going on there, that could get canceled, and then you suddenly wouldn't have your position as accurate. But remember too, and Tom and I talked about this before, but I don't see the screen so often on current GPSs, but on my handheld, it still has this screen where it will just out in a field give me my location. And if I set the GPS down on the ground and I let it sit there for about 15 minutes, I'll come back and there's this big like crisscross star pattern thing of all the different locations. It's been sitting on the ground in the same spot, but it's taken all this trip as far as GPS is concerned. So there's always some some variation. And what that surveying grade GPS does, like Tom was referring to, is it adds in another location that will also see those same shifts because it's so local, so close to the receiver, but it's a known location, so it can add its location in there and then make that be a very stable location. It doesn't really change at all. So
That's assuming you're sitting at one spot.
right.
So
Exactly.
another question, Scott. I've heard, and this person asking the question about 5G interfering with GPS signals. I think the feds are selling some more bandwidth.
Yeah, that is currently at auction. I think they've just opened up a whole bunch more of it. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get into crowded areas. I don't anticipate it making a huge impact on it, only because it's not the same frequency. It's a more crowded area, but it's not the same. So
Okay.
we'll have to wait and see.
About
I don't know that there's a known answer yet.
Jerry Sakars wanting to know what you know about a Garmin 78?
Oh, that's actually one of the pictures that we showed on there. It's a solid unit. It's the newer version of the one I have. The current version, I think, comes with all the US charts on it, so it's kind of a handy one for inland or coastal navigation. It's a small screen, we know that going in, but no, it's a nice little device.
Okay, next one. Will a Raymarine i70S wind depth bundle have GPS out of the box, or do you need another piece of hardware?
Great question. It won't have a receiver as part of its transducers. The i70 has a wind transducer generally, a speed and depth and temperature transducer, but that's it. So you could certainly add a GPS receiver to it. Generally, what you would do is put it on a network that your chart plotter is on, and it would just pick up the GPS from that. The reason that that's important is because then it can give you even more information than you may have otherwise had, current type information. It can use that in its calculation. So,
can you recommend a GPS for local lakes and rivers?
I do actually. Yeah, I would say start with that Navionics app. That's probably going to be a good happy place. Get yourself a good cover, a waterproof cover for your phone, so that you're not going to risk destroying it. But yeah, no, I'm a big fan of using the GPS like that, even if you're just using it for dashboard type information like we were looking at.
Okay, but then you have to somehow get the charts, right, for where you're going to be.
No, the application, Navionics application comes with the charts. It'll, Lisa, you should have seen that. Well, I don't know if it had them
Yeah.
for where you were,
You,
but
you basically get the app and then you pay for the charts of the area that you want.
right.
You
So
know,
the,
like
the
15
current,
bucks for the US and I
yeah,
think,
Yep.
you know,
yep,
So if you're gonna be on a river somewhere, like going on the Mississippi.
Yep.
You'd still have to probably pay to get the Mississippi chart.
well, you get the entire US and for
Oh.
everything for
Yeah.
$14.99.
yeah. Let's see. So if I think I had brought it up here.
It's cool.
I'm not sure where it was. Let's see.
I
think
can
use it.
jump in, and I've got some experience with lakes and rivers on this Navionics app.
Yep.
And so I do Lake Minnetonka quite a bit and the river. And so what you need to do is you need to highlight the area of the US that you're interested in, draw a box around it.
Yep.
And it will download the charts of the river or the lake you're interested in, which is an enormous amount of data. If you had the entire US data set on your cell phone, it wouldn't fit.
Right.
Yeah.
So this occupies just the amount of memory that you need for where you're going to be boating.
Yeah, and it looks like great call out, Alan. And it looks like the current model is you pay for $14.99 for the year, and then you can download whichever charts you're going to need for any specific time during that year. So you don't have to worry about loading the whole US up. You can load up just the area, like you were saying.
Right. Yeah. Like I when I sail up in Duluth, I just highlight that bay, that, the bay area and just outside the bay.
Mm-hmm.
So that, but I really like to use it because, and just put it on like save the route. And you'll be amazed that just going up there and sailing around for a day, and it's like, hey, we sailed 65 miles today. You don't realize how much you actually sail.
Right. Right.
Have fun.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. So yeah, I would probably start with that if you're not familiar with it. For a boat owner, I would say the B&G is sort of a sweet way to go. And actually Ray Marine, the Axiom that we were looking at tonight would be another nice way to go.
So Scott, what is the Axiom that we were just looking at? Obviously, we were just looking at the display part.
Yep. Yeah. So the one I
there's
have,
all the other instruments that plug into it.
Perfect question. Yeah. So other things that you would plug into that would be the transducer for the depth. Okay. That could be as simple as how deep is it? Just a straightforward bounce off the bottom, tell me how deep it is kind of depth transducer. It could be a traditional, that same transducer would then give you traditional fish finding. We could do a transducer that gives you the down view and side view looks that we saw earlier. You could do a transducer that gives you a forward view. This is, I've got more and more people that are doing the loop that will pay I think it's $750 or $800 for the transducer that actually looks forward. It goes out about 600 feet forward of the boat and gives you an idea of what's going on with the depth, if there's other objects in there. And then there's even another one on top of that that would be what they call live scope, that actually shows you the fish swimming. I think at some point it's not fair anymore, but it'll actually do that. Other things that you would want to attached to that would be an engine monitor. Some of the newer engines, 2000, I know this just makes me sound really old, but 2003 and newer had digital sending units, so you can use that into your multifunction display. Radar certainly, and if you're going to overlay your radar, a heading device that magnetically measures your heading. Autopilots can be integrated directly into the multifunction display, even to the point now where given the right chart information, you can actually have your autopilot self-drive all the way through various points. I would strongly recommend obviously paying attention while that's going on, but yeah, it will actually drive the boat. You can get that carried away.
All their wind speed, wind point stuff, right?
Obviously, yeah, wind instruments, speed through the water, temperature of the water, all sorts of things. Basically, what anything that can be connected through a NEMA 2000 network generally can be displayed on a multifunction display. The better, the bigger ones obviously will display more. Oh, and one we're seeing more and more actually is fusion radios, which are stereos, now show up on your device. Yeah, and it's amazing. It's yeah, they get carried away. The one thing I didn't mention, and I wanted to make sure I did this while we've still got a few minutes here. The device that we were looking at duplicates itself up by Wi-Fi. Most of the devices, the multifunction displays, also have Wi-Fi. So if I've got a tablet or if I've got a phone, I put the app on it for Raymarine or the app on it for Navico, which is B&G Simrad, or whichever unit I happen to be using. And now I can actually duplicate that screen on my iPad or on my phone. And it's not just a picture of what's on the screen. I'm actually able to interact with it as well. So really nice for a dual, yeah, exactly. Really nice for a dual helm. You can have that, the main device at the helm or in the nav station, and then the portable device in the other place. Take it into the berth with you at night, so you've got a quick way of looking at things. Make sure that.
But so Scott, you said Wi-Fi. Did you mean Bluetooth?
No, Wi-Fi. Bluetooth doesn't have enough bandwidth to really make you interactive on the device. So it is actually a Wi-Fi. It basically turns itself into a Wi-Fi transmitter. It's not anything to do with the internet unless you hook it to the internet. Right. But it's using the Wi-Fi system or signal to make.
So when you pull into port and there's a signal at the marina, it'll pick that up?
Correct. Yeah, you can do your map updates, chart updates and things like that through.
Does it mix drinks also?
Well, Netflix, I mean, that's getting close. You could watch a drink get mixed. So but yeah, no, there's obviously a lot of things that you can hook up to it, which I think
so what does just the display cost?
So just the display on the Axiom 9, if you get one that is set up to do the these are going to be words that don't make a lot of sense, but the UHD side view display only $7.99, something like that. The package I was working with was $11.49, and it came with a transom mounted transducer, which would be useless on a sailboat. You would need a through hull transducer in our situations. But yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood. So they've gotten a lot more reasonable. Obviously phones can easily cost that same amount. So anyway, that's kind of where you're at.
I know. I think is Embertson. Tom, are you out there yet? Tom Embertson? Did he sign off?
He was on earlier. I know. He probably got tired of listening to me.
He had the same thing. I don't know if it's the same one you have, Lisa, in Greece. He had it on his iPad. I don't know if it was Navtronics or something else, but it was pretty slick.
Yeah. No, that Navionics app is really, I think, one of the better ones. So, and it doesn't cost much either. So.
Yeah. Right. Anybody have any other questions or comments out there? You can unmute yourself and jump in. Lisa?
I'm sorry, what? I'm getting some pizza brought in.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Well, I sure appreciate everyone joining in. I know that February will be much more exciting, but I appreciate you putting up with just a basic one, but Joan and I really wanted to make sure that we got sort of a
Give me a plate.
hands-on, here's what it looks like thing. And given our constraints within Zoom, hopefully we achieved that. So,
Of course, now what you've done is you successfully spoiled us so that the next charter trip we take, and it has some old dog chart plotter that you can't figure out how to work without getting out the 139-page manual.
yeah. Well, just keep in mind, even the old ones had some sort of system that would go from page to page or modes to mode or whatever it would be. So you've seen what's out there. Hopefully you won't be afraid to use it next time you.
One thing that you did say was that the different manufacturers are starting to sort of coordinate
Yep. Yep.
the displays, because for any of us who have ever charted in the last 20 years and there's been chart plotters or any kind of GPS, it's like you go from one boat to the next and you're just back to starting over again. But,
yeah, you know, I picked Ray Marine only because I've been working with it for a couple of other customers, so I could integrate, keep working on the same one. But the B&G would be a really good example, and they do something very similar to what we saw on the Ray Marine. So it's not going to be identical necessarily, but it'll certainly be similar.
okay, well, if nobody has any other comments. Lisa, do you have any parting comments here?
Well, I'm just going to say everything that I learned to go cruising like 10 years ago is absolutely useless now
Oh,
because it's all changed. Well, it's not completely useless, but
no,
it's
you still
definitely changed.
Still got to know those things.
got to
Well,
know how
and
to use
I really-
the chart.
I really appreciate it too, because I am one of those people that gets on the charter boat and goes, oh my God, I don't even know where to start with this thing.
Right, right.
You know, and I kind of feel a little more comfortable
Oh, great.
just kind of digging in and
Yep.
trying to take a look at it.
Don't be afraid of it. Dig in.
Yep. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. You know, it's something we all have to get comfortable with because, you know, it's safety, and it's
Yep.
it's good to know.
Yep. Well, thanks so much, everybody.
Okay, Scott.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We'll see everybody next month.
Take care, guys.
Take care. See you next month.
Signing off.